Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gokarastvandhakaro Vai Rukarastanivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Bhidhiyate Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. As usual, a gentle reminder to silence phones and have a mask. After discussing various types of vairagya, dispassion, and various types of sannyasa, renunciation, the author hones in on a particular variety of sannyasa, which is the only one worth talking about. And what is that? Paramahamsa. Why? Because that has the greatest degree of vairagya. That is the one that requires the greatest degree of vairagya. Whereas the other ones, which is divided according to the gradations of vairagya. And first we have manda vairagya. This is just a summation. Manda vairagya means very weak dispassion. And it is here today, gone today, not even gone tomorrow. So, and in this kind of vairagya, what happens? What kind of sannyasa is possible? No sannyasa is possible. Yeah, that was a trick question. No sannyasa is possible because it's not long lasting and neither it is strong. It is brought about by the frustration with things not going one's way. It's brought about by various kinds of frustration. Nashtarajaha, dirgharogi, etc. Somebody who is ill for a long time says, oh, I'm done with this life. And then what happens? Given a chance, they would like to continue to live, but at the same time keep complaining. That is what dirgharogi. Nashtarajya has sudden loss, some kind of a unexpected loss of finances, status, reputation, etc. And then you just feel like running to the Himalayas, and then on the way you meet somebody and then they say, let's start a new business. Oh, okay, let's come back and do that. So then the manda vairagya doesn't lend itself to renunciation. But then why discuss it at all? Because it is a very auspicious marker in one's life. Even a flickering, tiny vairagya, the kind that is almost going to be swept away by the winds of, by the fickle winds of the mind and lack of sthairya, the ability to stay. Even that kind of a vairagya is celebrated in the tradition. That's why there is mention of it here. Because this Vairagya alone, the Manda variety, the dull, the weak variety alone, gives itself over to gain strength in the right circumstances. Because one has to begin somewhere, You can't suddenly say, today I'm on a cruise, and then tomorrow I want to become Paramahamsa. It cannot happen. Does not happen. So, everything here, the preparation, the knowledge is instantaneous. It's just like seeing this flower. And this, you cannot avoid seeing the flower if the eyes are functioning, and if they are open, sight takes place. That is how. Knowledge also takes place. It supersedes even the will, because there is no will involved in the operation of the sense organs. If there were will involved in the operation of the sense organs, we would all be seeing and hearing only the things we want to see and hear. Does that happen? No. That's why we see things like accidents, which we don't want to see. A very difficult sight to see two cars colliding and all these things, and wonder how the people, the occupants are. That is traumatic to watch. And then we would also only be hearing things that is pleasant to hear. That also doesn't happen. You're just passing through, and then suddenly you hear your name behind some door, and then naturally you don't mean to eavesdrop, but you want to know what they are saying, and you find that they are saying something not very nice. But the ears pick that up. So this shows a very important thing. It shows an extremely important thing, that there is no will in the operation of what we call a means of knowledge. And since Vedanta, Vedanta, both the portions of the Veda are means of knowledge, to know what? To know the self, which, although available always as I, Sakshi Rupena Bhasate, which is always available as I, ever present, never absent, self-shining Sakshi I, is always there. But what? About this Sakshi I is a lot of wrong, there are a lot of wrong notions connected to this I as a result of the prasada of Atma Ajnanam, self-ignorance. And this is why the I is partially known. I know I am, but please don't ask the next question. Who are you? What are you? Then, because all the wrong answers will come. I am as good as the body. I am as good as my resentments, of which I have many. And I am as good as my hurts. I am a hurt person. I am a guilty person. I cannot get over my own omissions and commissions. And what do these two show? I am the doer, karta. Guilty means karta. Because I can't stand my own omissions and commissions. Omissions and commissions is doing or not doing. Or I am bhokta. Bhokta means I am done in. I am done in by other people's omissions and commissions. This is bhokta. My own omissions and commissions I cannot stand, karta, doer. And then other people's omissions and commissions always come and get me. This is the one that is hurt. This is the one that is always upset. So these are the answers that come each time one is asked, so what is it that you are? The self-shining I is partially known. It is known as existent, but its nature is not known at all. Which is why the operation of the pramana in the form of the words of Vedanta are needed to reveal this I. And in the matter of this pramanik, if there is a word like that, now there is. In the matter of this pramanik, well, if you can say pranic, why not pramanik? There is some pranic, what is it called? Healing, pranic healing. And pramanic operations, okay? So in the matter of this pramanic operation, there is no choice. Eyes are open, there is something to see, and sight takes place. And if I put this in front of my face and say, please do not look at the flower, but look at the face, you will not be able to oblige, no matter how much Shraddha Bhakti you had. You will not be able to oblige. Sight takes place. And this is actually something to celebrate. Knowledge takes place. There is an ancient story that is told where the guru was teaching some students in the forest. And very nicely they were sitting and studying underneath a tree. And then that particular class happened to be the unfoldment of the Mahavakya, Tattvam Asi. You are nothing but Ishvara. You are that. Tat Jagat Karanam Brahma. That you are that Brahman which is the cause of the universe, which is Ishvara. This was what was being unfolded. And a young fellow was going from one town to another, and he was just accidentally crossing the forest. And in crossing the forest, he felt thirsty and he saw a kind of a hermitage, and he decided to stop there to ask for some food and water. And then he could not disturb the class because the class was on. So he just sat in the back and thought, let me just listen. But while the other students had been studying for years, this is the one that received the knowledge of the Mahavakya and gained self-knowledge right there. That is how the story goes. Because of the preparation. He didn't want to. He didn't say, oh, I'm in search of a guru, I'm in search of this knowledge, nothing. He was in search of food and drink, but then what he got was a much better deal than food and drink. So this is our saving grace, that there is no will involved in receiving this knowledge. There is no will involved, but only preparation. Preparation is involved. And so however we see that preparation, an accidental preparation, a flickering vairagya is celebrated as Shubha Ichha, Shubhecha, an auspicious beginning, an auspicious desire to understand the I, and because of this auspiciousness, one has some little vairagya. And in the hands of the Shastra, that tiny vairagya can be made into a conflagration, no problem. This is what happens. So people come to the ashram many times with a flickering mumuksha, desire to be free, with a flickering jignasa, with a tiny amount of vairagya. But then, after one visit, the vairagya grows a little bit. It's like going to the gym, you know. Yeah. And so, after one visit, you don't see any discernible growth in the muscles, but you feel better. Your body feels more lithe, more present, and more able to, more lighter. And then after the next visit, then you feel like going more. That's exactly how the preparation is. And so, so that's why Manda Vairagya is discussed, because it is also to be celebrated. Because it is the beginning of a very auspicious journey. It is a marker, it's the beginning point of a very, very auspicious journey, a U-turn into greeting and understanding the self. By reading this understanding of all the preconceived notions about the I that are simply not true, demonstrably not true. And so therefore, therefore Manda Vairagya is discussed. And then we have the strong Vairagya, strong variety, the middling variety, and that can lead to that can give over to two forms of renunciation. What are they? Kutichara and Bahudaka. Kutichara is the one, what's the name? Backyardananda. Puts up a little cottage in the backyard of the children or relatives or whoever, because the person is feeble, aged perhaps, or has a disability and is unable to go for bhiksha and go from place to place, be a wandering parivrajaka, not possible, and so stays put in one place. And Bahudaka is the one who is the pilgrim, constant pilgrim. And there also there are many rules. Don't start a following. Don't get settled down and start telling people's fortunes under a tree in order to become famous. And don't start doing these kinds of things. All these things are there. And don't get too fond of the people of one village. Keep moving from site to site. Be incognito. So this is the strong variety. And the stronger variety can lead to two other forms of renunciation, Hamsa and Paramahamsa. And the difference is not much. The Hamsa still identifies, the Hamsa carries along, like the Kutichara and the Bahudaka, the Hamsa carries a staff, three staffs tied together, 3 sticks tied together to remind oneself that one is not the body, mind, sense complex. One is not the body, one is not the mind, one is not the ego, all these things. This is the stick. So to enact this process of depersonalization and gain vairagya from the body, mind, sense complex, the Hamsa is there. Stronger yet is the Paramahamsa, which we are talking about, where we have landed here. This Paramahamsa, what is this Paramahamsa? The one that is throws away the stick or the 3 sticks. There is nothing, because having the stick is a sticky situation, because you can't go anywhere without it. You have to keep carrying it and all these things, and there are certain rituals associated of depersonalization, and the sticks were useful and now they are discarded. The sacred thread discarded, the tuft of hair discarded, everything, and the person is just myself and the sky. There is a very nice quintet which is called Yati Panchakam, also called Kaupina Panchakam. Kaupina means like a loin cloth, an ode to the loin cloth, because that is a marker of a sannyasi, meaning very minimalist. All that is needed just to cover that body parts. That's all it is, for the sake of decency and moving around in society. And so here it says that this kind of a Paramahamsa, it describes the Paramahamsa sannyasi and says some wonderful things. Moolam taroho kevalam ashrayantaha. The one that is taking shelter, the one who has a wonderful home, AC, well ventilated. What is that? A big tree. That is the home. Kevalam means the only refuge is this tree. It could be any tree. It doesn't have to be the same tree, and there is no board. Swami so and so Ananda lives here. It is not the tree is not colonized and made into a home. Any tree. Moolam taroho kevalam ashrayantaha. This kind of a Paramahamsa sannyasi described here has a wonderful dish. Dish means like a plate where the food is there. Oh, what kind of plate? Made of bone china? No, just bones. The hand. The hand is whose plate? Panidvaye bhoktum amantrayantaha. The one is ready with a plate all the time. Very easy to maintain. Just wash, keep, that's all. And you never have to worry about it breaking, it being stolen, it getting lost. It's right here with you. And then the one who keeps away all objects of desire, far away. Kaupinavantaha, the one who owns a loin cloth. Khalu bhagyavantaha. is indeed the most fortunate one. That is the refrain. I taught that here once, long back. And then somebody asked in the satsang question, so if I order myself a loincloth, will I become this kind of a Swami? I said, no. It's not having, it's not having your Mercedes and a 3-bedroom home and then plus a loincloth. No. It's only loincloth. Give up all those things. Then you can order the loincloth, and that is what it is. A person looked a little crestfallen. But this is what the Paramahamsa is. There are like this, that was just the first verse. And then there are 4 more verses like this which describe how they talk, how they walk, everything. And then a few more things very important about understanding the Paramahamsa Sannyasi. And what I am doing in this is summarizing some of the things that are going to come later, which we do not have the time to study in detail. So what constitutes the Paramahamsa Sannyasi? Very important. One, this is now in terms of achara. Achara, because we came we are at the 12th verse, I think. Yeah. So, no, in the 11th verse, there was this word. We are at the 12th verse, but the 11th verse was this word. Etesham tu samacharaha prokta parashara smritau. In the Parashara Smriti, a work, the title of a work, Etesham, for these people, samacharaha, the kinds of practices and conduct has been given. And a few things about the conduct. And why is this pertinent? Why should I know why some sannyasi lives? Because one is aspiring to be that. And in fact, that's the only destiny. There is no other destiny. What other destiny is there? No, I want to retire. This is the retirement plan. No other retirement. Because in every other retirement, you're busy trying to protect money from itself, inflation, etc. And you're busy worrying about whether you will make it or not. Whether your money will outlive you, that is one kind of worry. And then the question of who to give it to. And because all the children are useless, and then I don't want to give anything to them anyway. And then what about non-profits? The non-profits will just eat it up. Few people will eat it up. It will never go to the intended people. That is the other worry. This is if your money outlives you. These are the kinds of worries. What if you outlive the money? Oh my God, that's another set of worries. How shall I live? Who will take care of me? My children do not want me and they don't care. They have their own families to take care of. Why will they take care of me? And friends will run away as soon as I ask for a handout. Handout means when you put a hand out. Yeah. And so when I ask for a handout, they will duck under a bush. And so therefore, what will I do? So regardless, if you outlive your savings, there is one kind of worry. And if the savings outlive you, there is another kind of chinta. Vriddha tavat chinta magnaha. This we already saw in the Bhaja Govindam. The elderly person is always consumed by all kinds of worries. And so therefore, that is not a good retirement plan. Because it is filled with worry. And as one grows older, the yearning is to be tranquil. The yearning is to be calm. One may not know V for Vedanta, but the yearning is there to be just to have some shanti, some tranquility, some calmness, some security. And the mistake that one makes is thinking that the security, calmness, happiness, whatever you want to call it, is centered on objects. That's why the study of Vedanta, which is what makes a Paramahamsa. Because you see, with the other two, Bahudaka and Kutichara, they may or may not study. Yeah. They may be just going around and leading a very honest and wonderful ethical life, no problem there. But the study is not the main thing. They are still worshippers, they are still devotees, and devotees means even the Paramahamsa is a devotee, but not a jnani bhakta. They are not jnani devotees. They are also not interested in the study because perhaps they don't know, or perhaps they have, their lifestyle takes all the time that is needed to reproduce that lifestyle of a wandering monk or somebody who is old and feeble. Maybe they are not in a position to study, but they have renounced. But with the Hamsa and the Paramahamsa, Tattva Jnana becomes extremely important. And so, with this Tattva Jnana, meaning Tattva Jnana means the study of Vedanta. The study of Vedanta replaces the worry. How? Because the worry is due to not knowing the truth of oneself. That is why the worry. How will I live? This worry will not be there. What is going to happen? How will I live? The what is going to happen is taken care of by understanding Ishvara. The study of the first sentence of the Ishavasya Upanishad will tell you what all you need to know. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Whatever that is here is pervaded by Ishvara. Everything that is here that you know the name of, you do not know the name of, you have, you don't have, the understanding of, whatever it is known and unknown is pervaded by Bhagavan. This is how, and understanding these kinds of sentences takes away the worry because you can't do anything about it. This is Ishvara. You learn to Ishvaraize the universe slowly, one thing at a time, starting with one's own body, mind, sense complex. And so one is well in the way of Tattva Jnana. This is Tattva Jnana. So that replaces the worry in the Paramahamsa Sannyasi. That is why there is stronger Vairagya, because there is a joy centered around one's being, and there is less and less dependency on props, on other objects, on people, on situations, on food, on so many things. That is how they are able, that inner freedom makes the Vairagya much stronger. And because of that inner freedom, one can reach great heights in one's sadhana, in one's contemplation, and therefore attain what is called jnana nishtha. And so an examination of these kinds of sannyasis is very important, because the sannyasi lakshana, the characteristics, is a sadhana for the jnani wannabe. The jnani's lakshana, the characteristics of the jnani, become useful rungs on the ladder of sadhana for the one who wants to emulate that. So everybody may not be willing or able to take sannyasa, and that's okay. That's fine. But there is nothing prohibiting one from looking at the jnani's lifestyle, and an analysis of the jnani's lifestyle reveals a number of things. And so here some of the rules that are there are very, very beautiful. The one thing is about, what is that? Namaskara. Namaskara means bowing down. And the sannyasi, the Paramahamsa sannyasi here, does not bow down to anybody other than Ishvara, or maybe an elder sannyasi in the lineage or in any other lineage. And in fact, that also was prohibited earlier, because it will lead to certain ahankara, situations. I am the eldest sannyasi here, everyone should bow down to me. This kind of a very subtle ahankara that comes up, and that is associated, that is not there at all. So this is something, the namaskara means supplication. And there are, and the rules around this salutation, supplication are given because the point is to get to the place of standing in one's own glory. Sve mahimni. Abiding in one's own glory as complete and as sufficient and as not wanting validation / blessings / prayers from any other source than one's own self. This is something which is very, very nice to think about as a possibility. And this itself becomes a sadhana, a place of contemplation for everyone else. Because when we look at this particular rule or the practice, it helps one to think about what are the props that I have in my life currently. What are all these props? Number one. And what is it going to take for me to let go of them? Which of them can I let go of right now? And the props are physical, emotional, cultural, familial, all these are props. And so this first rule helps us to assimilate the very concept of a prop-less existence. I am enough. I am everything. I am Sarvatma. I am everything. And that is very, very important. And the second thing is the how does the Shastra put it? Is the indifference to praise or censure. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, these characteristics are given. Samaloštashma kanchanaha. There is a samadarshinaha, the same kind of attitude towards everything in the world as Ishvara. And a corollary to that one is sama ninda stutihi. Ninda, censure. Stuti, praise. This is a very important value to start imbibing right now. Because one is very happy when one is praised. In fact, one is a praise hog. Yeah. I did this. Did you notice me? Did you notice me? I was the one who did this. Me. And then, one wants to hear, yes, I noticed. Yes, you did very, very well. Oh, happy. Until what? Until the next thing should be validated. One is a praise hog, a validation hog. And this is true in small things in the daily life. And that's why resentment comes very quickly. I did so much for them. They did not validate it, they did not even notice it, and then they did not give back the same thing to me. Why should they? Think about it, why should they? Why did you do it? I did it for them. Wrong. If you did it for them, then you wouldn't be feeling bad right now. So you did it for yourself, or you did it in the hope of getting validated. And the validation did not come. And when the validation does not come, what comes? Anger comes. And this is something to watch. Because otherwise it just can spiral downwards. And this is part of the discussion in this work. Very beautiful discussion in the 5th chapter. Jnani Lakshana. JivanMukti Mukta Lakshana. Tulya Ninda Stutihi. This is what in the Bhagavad Gita, that expression is there. So, this search for validation comes from a deep sense of insecurity that is centered on the self. The non-self, anatma, cannot be a place where insecurity is. Because it is anatma, it is not you. So insecurity is not centered on anatma. And even if it was centered on anatma, there is nothing to do about it because it's not you. Why should you care if the flower is insecure? It doesn't matter. So therefore, insecurity is, as it were, centered on the I. Ahankara really, where the I is cognized, and that I which identifies wrongly with the manaha, buddhi, chittam, and then body, senses, etc. So that I which identifies with various facets of the mind and the body and the senses as mind, this itself, this sum total is me. A very sad state of identification. And yet, it cannot sit still because it wants to be more. And that is the cause for the need for validation. It wants to be more. It wants to be more and more and more and more. Why? Because somewhere there is a yearning to be one with the whole, to be Ishvara. And the desire to be Ishvara is manifest by trying to control all the things and people in one's life that one can, in order to reproduce that feeling that I am in charge, I am in control. This is the problem. So for this kind of an insecurity that is there centered on this ahankara, that is why one becomes a validation hog. Did you notice I did this? And I do this for you every day. And you haven't seen, much less thanked me. That is why in the Shastra we don't have the word thank you. In Sanskrit we don't have the word thank you. It's a thankless, and we don't have the word sorry. It's a thankless and unapologetic culture. Because if we really look, who to thank? Oh, the person that brought you something. You say thank you. Where did the person bring it from? From the tree. Let's say some fruit has come. So the fruit came from the tree. So we should thank the tree. And the tree, of course, came from Bhagavan. And then if you start thanking Bhagavan, you will be exhausted. Because where to start? Your own body and the ability to thank also comes from Bhagavan. So really, and that Bhagavan is you alone. So really speaking, there is no need to thank Bhagavan. And if there is no need to thank Bhagavan, there is no need to thank anything and anyone either. And this is the other side. We'll be talking about this also. The other side of Tulya Ninda Stutihi. Tulya Ninda Stutihi means the one who is, who has equanimity with receiving what is called praise or censure. So praise means validation. And validation always is connected to a sense of not knowing and not acknowledging, not being able to own up the I that is propless. So the validation becomes a prop. I have to be fed on a diet of validation every day, otherwise what happens? I feel hungry. I feel incomplete. And you know what happens when you feel hungry after that? Anger comes. That's what happens. And so therefore here, the one that has given up the need for validation is the person of knowledge, the need for validation. And if you want to say, I am not a person of knowledge, I am not any Paramahamsa, so why should I give up the need for validation? Because it brings about security and it is a sadhana. Brings about a sense of security. So try doing something and choosing to not be validated. Do it anonymously. That is one way to make this into a sadhana. Do this anonymously and then see what happens. Sit with the discomfort that comes from not being validated. Sit with that. Squirm. And then see that pain has nothing to do with the present situation. That pain has something to do with the past, with the samskara or of the past. What is samskara? Samskar or the other. Yeah, from the past. That is what samskara is. Go there. It's very easy to blame the person. Oh, you didn't do this for me. You didn't do this. And it's a habit. It's the habit. We just immediately the finger goes. That's why it's called the moving finger. It keeps going. And or one explodes or one implodes. One blames, the finger goes here and say, I am no good. Nobody is validating. This is one trajectory. The next trajectory is nobody is validating me. Therefore, tasmat, what? I must be an idiot. I don't know. I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me. That's why nobody is noticing me. And so both these are not, both these positions come from insecurity centered on the self that one can start gently correcting. And especially it is good to start correcting it in a supportive environment like an ashram, gurukulam, whatever, because one is surrounded by support. One is surrounded by the teachings. And this is the place for this kind of a silent sadhana. So this is the very, very beautiful teaching. So this is in terms of praise. This is what happens when praise doesn't come. Dejection and anger and resentment comes instead, because there is a sense of doubt as to who I am. And that doubt has to be constantly validated by the so-called friends and well-wishers. In fact, there is a silent pact that is made. You validate me and I will validate you. This is how marriages take place. Yeah, you solely, I have one person only to validate me. And then, and never works out that way. Yeah. But this is what it is. You forge certain relationships with significant others and with some groups of people. You validate me and I will validate you in return. It is the question of sinking together in insecurity. This is what I suppose means to be in sync. Yeah. This is what it is. Then on the other side, what happens when the validation comes? The ego preens, the ego has a moment in the sun, and the ego is, and then the ego is unsurpassable. The ahankara keeps wanting more and more and more. The ego is happy, and then like a madman, happy and dejected, one keeps seeing the height of joy, ecstasy, and the depths of agony. The ego, the ahankara, the I notion is cast into this terrible yo-yo life. What Pujya Swamiji used to call yo-yo life. Up and down, up and down. It's crazy making. And then the next danger with the praise and the validation is that one has a false sense of security. And when there is a false ersatz sense of security, one does not want to look for the true sense of security, because one masquerades as, oh, I'm already secure, I'm all right, nothing is wrong. So why seek when nothing is wrong? These are the problems with getting validation. Then let us now look at the topic of invalidation. Invalidation means what? No validation at all. Not only absence of validation, but censure. Because of you, this happened. Because of you, this is what happened. People say this all the time. You didn't do this. You didn't. You said you would, but you didn't. Or you didn't do this properly. This is not how it should be done. This is, exactly how one leads one's life. One feels, for some reason or the other, free to just censure everything and everyone around oneself. And when one is at the giving end of the censure, there is a nice feeling. Oh, I told them off. They needed it. And it was high time. How much to keep quiet? I had to say something, and I am right. I'm right. It's a self-righteousness with that censure. But put yourself on the receiving end. Oh no! How could they say this to me? How could they say this? So mean, so cruel. How could they do this to me? And if they did this to me, that means I'm as bad as they say I am? No, that cannot be true. But then it must be like that. It must be like that at all. And people become very sensitive. Very, very sensitive. You looked a certain way, and I didn't like it. Some of those things are gone now because of the mask. Because you can barely sense the other person's expression. In a way, it is safe. Nice, yeah. You can even barely tell whether the person is smiling or frowning or scowling. Yeah. In a way, it is safe because all that nonsense has gone. Yeah. And this censure and blame is a very, very sensitive topic because it rubs against the notion that I am the agent of action. That thought itself, that I am the agent of action, is wrong, and it doesn't sit very well at all in oneself. It doesn't sit very well. Doesn't sit very well because one is not a doer. So the first level of understanding here, and we'll be talking about that, is that Ishvara is the doer, a proxy doer. In the beginning, you drag in Ishvara as a proxy doer to get out of this doeritis, to get out of this sense of identification with the doer. So whenever there is censure, when somebody is blaming you, the doership rises and protests. I didn't do it wrong. I'm not a bad person. And I didn't make this mistake. The defensiveness comes out. The inner ninja comes out to play, defensive and offensive. And this is what is called reproducing samsara. This is how samsara is reproduced, repeatedly. Because then you are defensive and then they are offensive, and then you have to be doubly defensive. You have to each time one is in a place of justifying oneself, know that samsara is getting a CPR, a new lease of life. You are giving it some new breath, new lease of life. This is exactly what is happening. Because there is no reason to justify. There is no reason to justify at all, because let's say somebody blames, there's only two possibilities. What are they? They could be right. Yes, I dropped the ball, I did this, they could be right. And the other possibility, they could be wrong, they need not be right. And in either case, that sense of doom and gloom and taking it personally that comes with censure, both of them are unwarranted. And they are unwarranted because of the fact that this sense of doom and gloom is a superimposition, as it were, on the I that is free of that. So therefore it is unwarranted. But how to understand this? If they are right, override the defensiveness by saying, okay, I think I made a mistake. How can I correct it? Very easy. And it also silences the other person. because the other person has come with a huge arsenal. You know? Yeah. And then they throw the first missile. And then you say, yeah, you're right. And then they feel surprised and a little disappointed that all of this they wanted to use at you, and then they're not using anything. They just go away. Nothing else. You have disarmed them, literally. And if they are wrong, that's a little more tricky situation. If you know they are wrong, then you can try telling them, I don't think this is correct because I didn't do this. What is the likelihood that they will believe you? Not very, not a high percentage there. So in that case, what is to be done? Keep quiet. Stay silent. Because this phrase, Tulya Ninda Stutihi, is followed by Mauni. Tulya Ninda Stutir Mauni. Yeah. Santushto yena kenachit. So, Mauni. Mauni means Dakshinamurti, silent. Oh, but then they'll think they are right. Let them, what is it to you? It's their thought. No, then they will bully me again. Here is where some more homework needs to be done, doesn't it? That you think you are bullied, that you think that you are, whatever. No, I'm not just thinking I'm bullied, I'm truly bullied. Get out of that situation. Get out of that situation. Don't be, have this sense of feeling trapped in that situation. You can leave. Oh, how can I leave? Okay, stay. Oh, but it's terrible, I can't stay. Leave. This is how it is. Each time one feels victimized, know that there are at least 3 or 4 options that are not being seen because of the veil of victimization, the veil of avarana maya. Ajnanam, Atma Ajnanam has a very thick veil. This is why one feels trapped. And why did one get into this trapping? Because the trapping is strangely familiar. It's like a deja vu. First, the trapping gave a certain sense of safety, and then it went wrong. So in the beginning, the censure was familiar. It was just like growing up at home, perhaps. Everybody blaming everybody else. So it looked familiar. And sometimes this is how it is. What is that? There is one kind of a form of parenting. It is called tiger parenting. Tiger mom, tiger dad. And then they will keep blaming and scolding the children. I'm just grossly simplifying it. I'm sure there are many more nuances to this. They'll keep blaming and chiding the children. And when the child protests or when the teenager protests, they will say, what will they say? We are doing this for your own good. And no wonder, with this kind of a background, this kind of a child growing into the adult will seek those kinds of situations where this chiding is there, which will make it feel comfortable, at least in the beginning. Friends, relationships, like that. But here is where the opportunity for healing this is there. And that is how one becomes a Paramahamsa. Don't think the Paramahamsa had a very cushy life and had the right kind of samskaras and the right kinds of things. No. In fact, the people among the saints, you find that almost nearly all the stories of the saints, they had a terrible early childhood background. Terrible background. Neglect, abuse, hunger, poverty, and roaming the streets, all these kinds of things. Terrible background. Their life was not a picnic, if you look at the lives of saints. But what made them a Paramahamsa What has made them saintly is that they took that background and were able to work with it. They used that background, they used the early difficulties as stepping stones to transcend those very difficulties. That is what makes a saint. It's not that Paramahamsa is born, Paramahamsa is made. And that is how one gets to this place of proplessness. And think of the grace and integrity it takes to not say anything when somebody is keeping on blaming you, because you know it is of no use. And even then they use all their arsenal, and then seeing you quiet, they are disarmed and they go home, they go away. A story is told about a Zen monk in ancient Japan. He was living on the top of a hill. And then there was a young girl coming and doing some seva. She would sweep his little hut and she would bring him fruits, fresh water, tea, whatever he wanted, and then go away. And then the girl the girl was discovered to be pregnant. And immediately everybody blamed the monk on top of the hill. They all came, before they were all coming with flowers and fruits and garlands. Now they came with cow dung and all kinds of terrible things, stones, mud and everything. They beat him up. All the elders from the village came and beat him up. He did not say one word. Then the child was born, and then they gave this newborn child to the saint, to the monk, and said, "It is yours, you take care of it. How could you spoil her life? How could you do this outrage? You should be ashamed of yourself. Why should her life be spoiled? You take care of it." And so here was the monk on top of a hill with a little baby in tow. And the monk who used to go begging in the village before, people gladly gave. Now with a little crying baby, he's going and begging for milk. People shut their doors, kicked him out. So much so that he had to go to faraway villages. Even there, some days he was able to feed and some days he was not. Then few months went like this. The child somehow grew up. And 6 months later, the same people from the village came. The parents of that girl came. The girl also came looking very shamefaced. Finally, she had the courage to confess that she had a friend, a lover from the next village. And she could not tell her parents because there was a feud between the families. And then they came again with flowers and fruits and lot of love, lot of apology. "Give us back the baby. It is not yours." He said, "Okay, take it. Take it." And listening to when I first heard this story, it really, think about that. Really, it's just so amazing. What a lot of titiksha, forbearance. If this one quality is assimilated, really Vedanta becomes very, very easy. This is titiksha. And to overcome censure, titiksha is needed. Titiksha means how is it defined? In the Viveka Chudamani, there's a very, very nice definition of titiksha. Titiksha is sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam chinta vilaparahitam sa titiksha nigadyate. Sahanam, forbearance, putting up with difficulties, is good for growth of Vedanta in the heart. That is the soil in which Vedanta grows. Putting up with difficulties. Whether they are difficulties because of some situations or whether they are difficulties because of somebody else's mistake, doesn't matter. Right now, I just put up with it. Why? For the sake of knowledge. If you can change it, change it. But we are talking of difficulties that cannot be changed. Putting up with difficulties for the sake of knowledge, difficulties that cannot be overcome. Chinta rahitam, without worrying about, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what am I going to do, what am I going to do? Can you do anything? No. Okay, here's the cue. What's the point in worrying? Instead of saying, oh my God, better to say Om Namah Shivaya. At least something comes out of it. Wonderful. And so, this is Chinta Rahitam, without, combusting from within. This is exactly what Chinta Rahitam means, without combusting from within. And then Vilapa Rahitam. Vilapa means mourning, yelling, loudly complaining all the time. Oh, look at the thing that has happened to me. Look at what I have to deal with. And whoever comes, you can complain. That is what sometimes people do. They're just waiting for a target. And as soon as somebody comes into view, the complaints start, because there is no titiksha. So when these two are not there, then there is titiksha. Inward combustion or outward regurgitation of all kinds of real and perceived complaints about a situation that cannot be altered. This is how to deal with censure. More we'll see in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaga Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.